A fox has stopped in the long grass to look at itself in the water. In Japanese folklore, the fox is the shapeshifter. It can become anything it needs to be. This one is looking at the one thing it actually is. The man who made this print knew exactly how that felt. He'd spent 30 years watching everything that made him disappear. The theatre prints he was raised on had stopped selling. Photographs were replacing the rest of his trade. The country that raised him was being made into something else. He made this fox anyway. By then, he had less than a year and a half to live. His name was Tsuchioka Yoshitoshi. He was the last great master of ukiyo-e, and he knew it. Long before the fox stopped at the water, Yoshitoshi drew men with no way out. Look at this warrior. Arrows are coming at him from two directions. The print does not offer him an exit, and the artist drew him anyway. The man who drew him grew up in a Japan that was coming apart. He was born in Edo in 1839 into a merchant family that had bought its way into samurai status. At 11, he was apprenticed to Kuniyoshi, the greatest warrior printmaster alive. Kuniyoshi taught him something unusual for a Japanese studio. Draw from life. Draw the thing in front of you, not the idea of it. Yoshitoshi listened too well. Because outside the studio, the thing in front of him was a country tearing itself open. The government was collapsing. There were riots, epidemics, and public executions. There were severed heads displayed in the streets of Edo. He went to look. He took his sketchbook. In 1868, the old order made one of its last stands at Ueno, a few miles from where he lived. Roughly 2,000 fighters loyal to the shogunate based a modern imperial army. It was a massacre. Afterwards, Yoshitoshi went to the hill with his sketchbook and drew what was left. What came out of that sketchbook changed his work. His warriors stopped looking like theatre heroes. They looked like real men in real trouble. Then came the series that made the blood impossible to ignore. 28 famous murders, each paired with a verse. Yoshitoshi drew 14 of them. They were said to have spread panic when they appeared, taken as proof that the country's soul was rotting. They sold out. I feel that even today, I do not want to show some of these on my YouTube video, but you can go and look them up if you are so interested. Yoshitoshi was not yet 30, and he had learned the lesson that would shape the rest of his life. People look away from what frightens them, and then they pay to look again. Fame like this should not have lasted, and it didn't. By 1871, the commissions had almost stopped, and so had Yoshitoshi. Nobody knows exactly what broke. Later accounts call it depression. Whatever name it had, it took the work out of his hands. The man who had walked a battlefield could barely finish a print. Okoto stayed with him through the collapse. When the money ran out, she sold her kimonos. Then she sold her furniture. Then her hair ornaments went one by one, and the rooms emptied around them. One winter, there was nothing left to burn, so they tore up the floorboards of the house and fed those to the fire. The famous artist was now burning the house underneath him. He kept drawing through it in scraps and sketches. It could not save them. but it proved his hands still worked. By the end of 1873, something in him moved. He began signing his work with a new name, Taiso. It means great resurrection. It was not a victory yet, it was a promise made too early, because poverty had not finished with him. In 1876, Okoto entered a brothel to pay his debts. The following year, a geisha named Oraku came into his life. She sold her clothes and possessions too, and when they separated, she also went to a brothel. Two women had paid for his survival with almost everything they had. Yoshitoshi had renamed himself after resurrection. Now he had to find a world that would buy him again. The world that bought him again was not the old one. It was newspapers. In the 1870s, Japan's new press needed pictures that were fast, sensational, and strong enough in colour to stop people in the street. Yoshitoshi could do all three. When Japan sent soldiers to Taiwan in 1874, he drew the war for readers who would never see it. Red jackets, gunsmoke, falling men. The artist who had sketched a real battlefield now sold battles by the sheet. In 1875, a newspaper hired him to illustrate the news itself. Murders, fires, the scandals, delivered as colour supplements to subscribers. It was faster and cheaper than the old warrior print world, and it paid. Then, in 1877, the last great rebellion of the old samurai order broke out in the south. The country wanted war prints again, and nobody alive drew war like Yoshitoshi. The resurrection he had promised himself in 1873 finally had buyers. Money came back. Students came too, eventually hundreds of them. In 1884, he married a widow with 2 children, and one of her sons became his pupil. For once, stability was not just something he drew for other people, and the work rose to meet it. In 1883, he designed this, a nobleman playing his flute in the moonlight, while behind him a bandit waits with a blade. The story goes that music held the thief where he stood. He cannot strike, and the whole picture hangs on that. But look at what else was arriving. Photographs were getting cheaper every year. Lithographs could be printed by the thousand. The old woodblock trade around him was thinning. Yoshitoshi was winning again inside an art form that was still losing ground, and he knew it. So he turned to the oldest light Japan had. He would draw the moon 100 times. Starting in 1885, prints began to appear in batches. 100 scenes from history, legend, and ordinary life, and in every one of them, the moon. A goddess flees to it. A warlord watches it on the night before his ruin. A daughter falls past it, giving her life to save her father's. People queued for them. Batches were said to sell out on the morning they appeared. In Japan, racing to become modern, Yoshitoshi was selling the old country back to itself, one moon at a time. And alongside the moons, he began his last series, 36 Ghosts. He had believed in ghosts all his life. He said he had seen them. Now he drew them with the calm of a man taking down testimony. Then his mind began to fail again. In 1891, he invited friends to a gathering of artists that did not exist. His money was stolen in a robbery of his home. His body started failing along with his mind. The Fox at the Water was printed in this period, close to the end. The shapeshifter had run out of disguises. It was looking at what it really was. Yoshitoshi was admitted to a mental hospital in the spring of 1892. He left in May. He never went home. He died in a rented room 3 weeks later from a bleed in the brain. He was 53 years old. 3 of his ghosts were still unpublished. They came out after he was gone, the dead man's ghosts arriving without him. The old world died around him, but his eye did not. His ghosts and his violence run downstream into manga, into Japanese horror cinema, and into illustrators working today who name him directly as an influence. If you've ever felt a Japanese ghost story crawl under your skin, you felt something Yoshitoshi helped make possible. He is everywhere, and many people outside Japan don't know his name. Before he died, he wrote one last poem, as artists of his generation still did. In one standard translation, it reads, "Holding back the night with its increasing brilliance, the summer moon." He was not writing about the moon. He had spent 50 years being it. The night came anyway, but for one long moment at the end of an era, he held it back alone. Yoshitoshi spent his life painting the line between the living and the dead. 30 years later, in England, a woman spent hers doing exactly the same thing. Almost everything about her was erased. Her story is on screen now.